And
Ooh.
now,
Oh,
did you hear that?
NSA.
That's new.
yeah, that is new.
Oh, now it gives you a chance to leave the meeting. Okay.
All right, gives you a chance to bail out.
I'm out.
Or,
Oh,
or,
wow.
Talking about this
or to
bullshit.
make sure you don't say anything embarrassing.
Well, it also just tattled though.
Too late.
Right.
I guess it also made sure that Bill remembered to record the meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
So now we all remember that.
They probably heard what we were talking about last time.
And I won't be able to go, hey, Bill, are you recording this halfway in? And
Right.
freak him
Give
out.
me a heart attack. And then I won't have to launch the killer drones to Seth's house.
Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. I'm Bill.
I'm Linda.
I'm Seth.
Marty. Sorry.
Charles.
I'm Chris.
Welcome, and we're happy to be back here with you again. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about today. And I think we're going to start off with the Nevers. So I know Chris and Linda and Audie and I and Charles have seen it. Charles hasn't seen all of it, but he has seen the first couple of episodes and the season 1, part 1 finale. So, and Charles kind of has an interesting perspective on the missed episodes. Charles, what were you saying?
No, I think that's the way. I mean, without having watched all the middle ones yet, because I might go back and watch them now. But the finale gave the characters
Our character.
yeah, the main character
True.
that's
Well,
right,
True, yeah.
Malia, true.
a little more depth, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so before the first 2 episodes, everything felt yeah, I mean, you're like, why do these people know how to fight? Why,
Sure.
And it just
Yeah,
silly. It was just silliness to me.
She always
Right.
seemed out of place.
Yeah, she seemed out of place. And then that the beginning of the finale, you go, oh, now I see.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'd have enjoyed the middle episodes if I hadn't.
So, yeah, on that with Amalia True and just being a lot, the series has a lot of mystery surrounding her because you really don't get her, and you also get the feeling that the people that she knows as well also don't get her.
Right.
There's like this mystery black box, and to your point on the last episode, the series finale here really kind of starts to unpack all of that and unravels it, and then it all starts to make sense.
Yeah, because the weird thing was, I mean, the thing that sort of confused me for the whole show was that she was the only one of what they call the touched, which are mostly 90% women that have had these glowing what they term spores land on them and give them special abilities. She was the only one of the touched that continually referenced this mission, that she's leading this mission, but she was never told what the mission was, or she was never officially given the mission or whatever. And the whole first season, you're wondering, okay, so there's obviously more going on here that she knows that nobody else knows, and we're not learning this. So how did she get this mission? And she seems to know something about the spores and that whole effect. And at least she's tracking down and trying to coordinate all of these people and bring them into one area so that they can accomplish whatever this mission is supposed to be, right?
Yeah, and I think for me, I was trying to theorize early on because her turn is seeing things generally before they happen.
Mhm.
And so with her having this mission and being kind of secretive on some things, I think some of her closest allies and even the audience will start to think, did she see something that no one else has seen that she's not sharing because it's of great importance or it's catastrophic or something? And that goes into the whole, if you've seen the future, what do you try to change to manipulate it or whatever? Is that a good idea or is it a bad idea?
Yeah.
But the last episode really puts a twist on that. And I mean, we should talk about the last episode a little bit more because the whole format of the series changed. Even when you started, I had to pause it to go back and see whether or not I was actually watching the Nevers.
Yeah.
So
we
did
did
we.
too.
We did the same thing. We
It's
had-
so Bill, this
That's
isn't
part of the reason
right.
I think I did it right is because Bill and Linda, all of a sudden they're both discussing whether or not this is the correct show, and I'm like, okay, well now I'm getting it,
Mhm.
and I know there wasn't an exposure in the middle to what this finale. I mean, right?
right.
Yep.
Because
you know
guys
there
are
wasn't
lost.
something you were missing that was critical to the season
Yeah.
finale because
And there's an argument that could be made that they could have started the series out with the last episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess, how much mystery do you want to have in that? Do you want to be the only one that knows while the characters don't know where she came from or not necessarily where she came from, but her consciousness?
yeah.
Are we doing spoilers?
Yeah,
Sure.
we'll
Yeah,
just mark
so-
a
We're
spoiler.
gonna have to.
Yeah, what the last
I think it's too late.
kind of starts to jump into is Amalia isn't the Amalia that she was before this whole thing started. She was a simple woman that basically worked in a bakery for a bit and then ended up doing deliveries and stuff. And she ultimately decides to step off a
Ledge,
if you will, into
the Thames.
river and drown and die. And when she actually comes to, which happens to be when the spore thing comes flying through the city, transfers, who we come to know as, I think her name is Zephyr, from the future, her consciousness gets transferred into who we know as Amalia True. And so the last episode is broken into chapters, I think 3 or 4 chapters.
Yeah.
That kind of covers what happened in the future and how Zephyr came to be in Amalia True's body. But
Right.
the Amalia True that we watched the whole series, why she seems off, she's got combat abilities and all this stuff, is because she was a member of some type of planetary military force or something like that.
Planetary
Planetary
Defense
Defense.
Coalition. The
Yeah,
PDC.
Planetary Defense Coalition.
So who is Zephyr?
Zephyr is the woman from the future. She's
Okay, so she's not not the future of the like a far future.
right.
then.
She's not the future of the past. She's the far future.
Yeah.
When a lot of the Earth appears to be a
Yeah.
devastated wasteland.
Like the end of time's future. Yeah.
Yeah, mostly
Mhm.
due to climate change, I think, but also warring factions. But I think the impression I got from the season 1 finale is that climate change was kind of devastating the planet. This alien species showed up and offered to help us fix this. And there were 2 groups of people. Basically, everybody split into 2 groups. There was the group called the Planetary Defense Coalition that wanted to work with the aliens. They're called the Galanthi. They
Yep.
wanted to work with them to try to get this technology from them to help fix our world. Then there was the other group, which is called the Free Life
Army.
group, and they're a very religious, God-centered group.
Right.
That's trying to murder the Galanthi and destroy. They're bombing all of the technology that the Galanthi give us. They're murdering the Galanthi. In fact, in the season 1 finale, when members of the PDC they arrive at this science facility where they had been doing research with the Galanthi on creating a more stable wormhole. which the free, what are they again?
Right, Seth? Free Life Army.
The Free Life Army. The Free Life Army thought that this was just going to create a giant conduit and these aliens were going to come streaming through and they were going to prevent that at all cost. Well, they couldn't get any information out of the scientists at the facility, so they ended up murdering them all, stringing them up above this pod that this one Galanthe was living in, slit them so that the blood would drain into the Galanthe's cell as a means of torturing, because you learn from the series that the Galanthe tend to bond with whatever humans they interact with, and so for that Free Life Alliance to do that, it was a form of torture to the Galanthe. They, when you torture somebody, you start with their family first, and so they were torturing him in the hopes that they would be so traumatized that they would leave and never come back. So
the Free Life Society is definitely the good guys.
Right. So that was a bit disturbing, but
motivated by their love of God,
yes,
who is peaceful and loving.
Yeah, and I would probably say that throughout the series, I think, if I'm recalling correctly, they start to echo maybe the beginning formations of like a Free Life Army with these people that run around with these armbands on, that are kind of anti, touched and whatnot. So I think they're drawing some early parallels there with that.
Right. So anyway, one of the women that's in the PDC, she's what's called a stripe, which is essentially frontline infantry, and she's pretty much seen it all and done it all, and she gets to this facility about an hour before anybody else does, because she's actually coming from a different area, and when she gets there, there's 20 members of the Free Life Alliance that get there that's she starts fighting with, and an hour later, when the rest of the PDC arrives, there's only 8 left, and so they get there and they're like, yeah, we couldn't believe there were 8 here, and she goes, well, there were 20 when I got here. Well, we only saw 8, and she goes, well, I did have an hour to kill. So she's, there's no doubt, they make it abundantly clear that she can take care of herself. She's got
she's a hardcore battle vet for sure.
Right, but now she is
still a damaged person, though.
Yes,
absolutely.
She was damaged. Yeah, we see that a lot in the season 1 finale.
And the funny part, not funny, but she's suicidal also.
Yes, another parallel there. When she ultimately makes her transition, not knowingly, but to the past. She basically commits suicide, which is the same thing that we see Amalia True do.
So she ends up in the body of a suicide survivor.
Yes.
Having survived suicide.
Well, would the original Amalia have been a suicide survivor? Like, did she survive her attempt, or?
Doubtful. She was definitely drowning, and I think the only reason she survived is because one of the spores attached itself to her, and
her body survived.
Yeah.
And
her consciousness didn't.
Right.
It doesn't seem to have. No, not at this point. Although you wonder if she didn't wake up in the future, but because that would just.
The series is not over yet, so we don't know if there's fragments of Amalia that are still around. True. Maybe she comes across people later on in the series that starts to mess with her head, because even Zephyr was. She's damaged. And she's come back here, and she's in a different body. Things are pretty weird for her.
I don't know. In the middle of the season, did she ever feel the need to bake?
To bathe?
Bake.
Oh, bake. Yeah,
Ooh.
We haven't seen that.
Yeah, we haven't seen that yet. But it would be an opportunity to start bringing things on like that, like habits or foods that she would like or something. Because now we've seen what the original Amalia True was. So,
although she was doing some pretty good cooking with that doctor for a while.
Oh my God.
Okay. So you guys, from right now, you your consciousness goes back to and replaces somebody in the Victorian era, steampunk or no steampunk. How do you fare?
Well, not good, because first of all, I wasn't. Right now, I'm not in the mood to leave this life. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas she felt that at the point at which she committed suicide, that it was what they were trying to do was hopeless. That fundamentally, people do not want change, and that they will do anything to prevent change. And she said, we've been fighting this Free Life Alliance forever, and neither one side ever wins. It's because both sides want to maintain the status quo. Nobody is really willing to accept the change. And every time we get to the point where we're about to win, we shoot ourselves in the foot somehow, and we don't. And she said, so I've got
all over again.
no hope for this. And she tells this to a woman who has received a spore, and she's got some sort of empathic awareness ability or something, in that she can kind of communicate, I think, with the Galanthe. And she's also like a doctor. And we find out she's with the Planetary Defense Coalition, but we find out near the end of the episode that she actually started as one of the member of the Free Life group, and that she changed. That's a proof that change can happen, because she changed and went to the other side. But this Zephyr sort of crushes her spirit and her hope with
right before she died,
with her outlook.
Reality.
And then that doctor gets killed. And so that's kind of what pushed Zephyr over the edge into taking her own life, was because she felt guilty for, first of all, crushing her spirit and her hope.
She didn't deserve to live. Yeah.
And then she got shot and killed. So she felt, I'm not worthy of continuing. So that's why she took her life. Now, one of the things, and I'm interested to see if the guys that watched this episode also noticed this. So that doctor character that died, her name, she started to tell. So there's a big taboo over telling anyone your real name in the future. You don't tell anyone your sacred name. You maybe call yourself by a nickname or something. Well, as she is dying, she starts to tell Zephyr her real name, but all she gets out is the H part of her name. Now, in the 1800s, there's a member of the Touched, who's of, I think, Indian descent. And her name, we find out in this last episode, is Harriet. And she's injured trying to save a member of the Touched from being hanged. And I'm thinking that Harriet, that consciousness from the H doctor in the future went into Harriet in the past. And my guess is that Harriet has resisted telling anyone that, because she thinks she's all alone there, and she doesn't probably know what happened. And she's afraid if she says something, they'll think she's insane and she'll get put in some sort of an asylum. So she hasn't said anything about it. And I'm wondering if at the end of the episode, when Amalia tells Penance that she wants to tell everyone, all of the members of the Touch that are in this facility, the true story of where she came from, what's going on in the future, and what they may need to do, that this will prompt Harriet to maybe say, well, I'm that person.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that at the end of that, Amalia has a vision of the future, of a lot of things that happen, and she does see Harriet in that, and says something of the effect like, "You're not supposed to see this. You're going to have to forget this for now," or something like that. And flashes through a bunch of other images before she falls on her back. then gets attacked by a bunch of beings or whatever. Yeah, and it's like, oh, that part's now. That part was kind of funny because she never really knows when things are going to happen, but she saw the attack, and then she kind of looks up and sees that she's about to be attacked. She's like, oh, that part's now.
And my impression is that those creatures that attacked her are like the maybe failed experiments from that psycho doctor.
Yeah, that doctor is crazy.
Yeah, so there's multiple doctors in the show. So there's the future doctor, the Harriet woman,
Dr. Edmund. Hey, let me look here. Might be Dr. Edmund.
Yeah, and then there's the doctor that Amalia is having a relationship with, and then there's this other psycho doctor that's trying to figure out what makes the touched, and he does that by basically strapping them down on a table and a chair and using a saw to cut the tops of their heads off and explore their brains while they're alive.
Yeah, it looks like Dr. Edmund Haig is the crazy one.
He's like, I'm sorry, but this is going to hurt. And you can imagine that it would. Now, there's another little interesting dynamic here in that there's a member of the Touched who's a murderous psychopath named Malady. And we see her showing up and she murders people left and right without care. And
enjoying it.
What's that?
She seems to enjoy it.
And she enjoys it, right? And you can tell she's just like psychotic, right? And we don't understand why, but we learn through the season that she's got some sort of sordid relationship with Amalia True. And we find out in this last episode what that is. And I don't know, Chris, you want to talk about that?
That one was
her name was Sarah.
Was that had to do with the bakery?
That had to do with so they were at the remember they were at the insane asylum.
Yeah, they're in the institution.
Oh yes. So when they were kind of doing some early on investigations, trying to figure out who saw what and may have been touched or whatever. Amalia at the time, basically Zephyr at this point, I don't know if I'd say threw her under the bus, but basically didn't take an opportunity to protect her and let Malady basically tell this doctor all the things she saw, basically confirming for the doc that she was this crazy person and who he's looking for, and going to take her away and do all these experiments or whatever. And Amalia saw it coming, and she didn't do anything to stop it, and basically abandoned her. And Malady had really been maybe Amalia's real first friend there,
right?
At the asylum. So you see this betrayal happen, this epic betrayal.
Yep. And that's what she says at one point during the season, later on in the season, when they come face to face, is that you left me there, and turn me over to them basically and let them do their work on me, and I thought we were friends, kind of a thing. And she apologizes because she knows what she did, but we don't know until the last episode.
Right, not until the last episode.
Right.
Yeah.
And she had talked, this Sarah, aka Malady, had talked several times. We see her mention in the episode about how two true friends trust each other, kind of a thing, and help each other and protect each other. And then at the end, when Zephyr figures out that what this doctor is intending to do, which is experiment on them, she said, well, I don't know anything about any lights. I just pretended to know in order so that this Sarah person would not feel like she was losing her mind, right? And so I just lied to play along. I don't know anything about it. You'll have to talk to her. And then so the doctor says okay and lets her go. And then she tells Sarah, tell the doctor everything he wants to help you, even though she knows that's not the case. So she essentially used her as a means of evading that doctor. So you can certainly see why Malady would have a bone to pick with her over that. There's one of the opening scenes, and so that's Sarah. Linda's posted a picture here of Sarah. They're in the mental institution, and Sarah's hugging Zephyr, who's now in the body of Amalia True in the past, and trying to comfort her because she doesn't know what the hell's going on. And she's just realized that she's not in her own body, because she's looked down and she said, why are my hands so small? What is, and she realizes that's not her body. And so she's kind of freaked out.
Meltdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was just a whole lot to unpack in that season 1 finale. And this just part 1. Part 2 of the season 1 finale is Monday night, I think. So it'll be interesting to see what else we find out in that.
I'll also add there was another mystery they unpacked, which was there's a detective that you meet along the way through the series. Let me look here. It used to be like former boxer guy or whatever.
Frank Mundy.
Yeah. So Mundy was investigating this death of somebody that we come to find out later was being portrayed by, so in this particular scene, he's actually at the site of where they found the body.
And he's the one on the left in the hat in this picture. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was from the first episode, right?
First or second, something like that.
First or second, really early on. And they come back to this at the very end, and he figures out who was basically that body, and it was the body of, I think, the actual reporter, and you find out that Malady / Sarah has been running around
masquerading
as alternate personality.
Yeah.
So he eventually captures who he thought was Malady and basically sentences her to be executed. And I guess the decision was made to execute Malady publicly, which also brought up a lot of political conversations and things like that. What kind of message are you trying to send? This is going to make relationships worse and all this kind of stuff. But after another plot basically gets revealed as to why that happened, who the conspirators were and why they were having this public hanging, and they were there to kind of kill some people in the public using electricity. There's a whole thing with that. And ultimately, I thought this was one of the better twists of the season when you find out that Malady has been running around portraying herself as a reporter, not the crazy person that we've seen Malady to be. And I think that was
because she's very good at acting normal.
Yes.
Which we didn't think was possible.
Right.
Based on everything we've seen from her. And I didn't realize that she was the reporter until, like almost the very end.
Yeah, I didn't either.
She didn't look anything like her. Yeah. So that was pretty amazing. So
the scene of the reporter walking down the alleyway and taking the wig off, and you realize it's Malady, and she's got that wicked laugh going on, and it was like, whoa, what just happened?
Mind blown. Right.
And they're doing that as the detective's kind of sitting there figuring it out, and realizes what the dead body he has is, realizes who they hung that day, which was Malady had this devoted girl that would follow her, do whatever she needed to do, and basically that's who was who swapped places with her when Malady got captured.
Right.
Which found out later wasn't Malady, but
so it's a very, very good show. A lot of sort of plots within plots that get uncovered as you work along. And if you like the steampunk aesthetic with Victorian era England, also with some future sci-fi stuff mixed in and aliens, and it's just for me, it's got something for everything. Everything I like is in that. So
I'm looking forward to more for sure.
Yeah.
The more I hear, the more I'm like, man, this has got some X-Men vibes to it.
Yeah. Well, I think I think it does, just because of the different powers these women all have.
Well, also the person coming back from the future, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's in there. Well, I mean, that's kind of standard sci-fi fantasy trope, but also X-Men did that.
Right.
The whole publicly executing the mutant / touched And using it as a trap for others. Very X-Men. I was like, oh, are they going to build giant steampunk robots called Guardians or something next?
They might. Well, what are those? Those creatures that attacked Amalia in the cave. I'm wondering if those are something that insane doctor created, or where they came from.
I'm thinking so. And the doctors, you do find that some of the people that the doctor's taken, because there are a bunch of people that just go missing.
Yeah.
We do see one of them help Amalia in the end get up that elevator shaft or whatever. Right. So even though some of them have been broken, some of them clearly aren't all the way gone.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I do think they're going to dig into that a little bit more because they've only touched onto it a couple times. Yeah, that's the crazy doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, at least it looks like he enjoys his work.
Oh, he very much does. He's a sick bastard.
He is a sick fuck.
Man.
That is for sure.
But I mean, again, they have there's a lot in the series for everyone, I think. And again, the last when they get to the finale, they really put the twist on it. They break out everything in the chapters. It was like watching something completely different, and then they kind of they put it all together and put a bow on top. To wrap it up, and it really kind of folded everything in. Everything that you had questions about either was answered, or they kind of opened the road up to continue some mysteries down the road. So I'm really excited to see where they go.
So Linda's just posted a picture of Zephyr from the future, and they're in that science facility. That's one of the scenes there. So
yeah, she looks like she's been through some
oh yeah.
shit.
Yep.
Oh yeah, so she's got some battle scars.
Yeah, Charles, you hit the nail on the head early on when we were talking, and you said, when you started, how did she know how to fight? How did she have all these abilities?
Yeah, it bothered me. Yeah,
it goes the whole season without really answering a lot of that stuff. And when you get to this, it just opens all that up and clears everything up for you. So,
yeah, it does. No, it was funny. Yeah, it hits you.
You're like, now it all starts to make sense.
Yeah, what'd you think, Audie? You liked it?
Yeah.
Any favorite parts or?
No. I just
All right.
just
So
nice
Amelia's
smooth.
never just after she's never is she now free to go, oh god, the past sucks.
Well, were religious folks a problem in the middle episodes?
No, we never saw them in the middle episodes. So my thought after seeing where we're at right now is that I got the impression that the humans in the future, the scientists maybe thought they were building a wormhole to the Galanthes' homeworld to allow more of them to come through to help us.
Right, and that wasn't it at all.
But we find out that these, when the PDC get to this facility now and they start investigating, it's apparent that this wormhole is a one-way transit back. So they think it's an escape tunnel, basically. This Galanthe, who, for what we believe to be now maybe the last living Galanthe on Earth, because the others have all been killed. Although, we learned through the episode that they had thought they were all already dead and that they didn't realize there was still one left. So it's possible that there could be another one or two somewhere in hiding that we may find out later. But anyway, the thought was that this wormhole then was a one-way transit back, and that this Galanthe was going to leave and go back home. And I think the free lifers didn't want that to happen. They wanted to kill it. They didn't want any of their Galanthe to make it back home to report on anything, and then that would supposedly prevent any of them from coming through in the future.
So, but did the was there any evidence at all that the Galanthe were evil?
No. They seem
somebody showed up and it's like, hey, we see you've got a really bad climate problem. We can help you out with that. And they're like, no, let us die.
Right. It's like, we don't need help with our planet. This is the way God made it. God's got a plan.
Yeah,
Right.
and that plays into
And the aliens
you
were just like, there is no God.
know,
Right.
I mean that plays into things we deal with today though. Fear drives irrationality a lot of times and things. So I think a lot of it is just rooted of the unknown.
Well, and they had a good moment there where they make the Galanthe, even though they're kind of strange looking creatures, playful and cuddly. Yeah, they wanted to cuddle.
Yeah, so the Galanthe, to picture it, maybe you can find a picture of it, Linda, but there's after each episode they kind of do a behind the scenes little 5-minute thing. And so they designed the Galanthe to be part tyrannosaur, part elephant, and what was the other part? The elephant, because they wanted the
octopus,
the wisdom. The wise continents, and then the octopus features in order to give it some otherworldliness, and then the tyrannosaur parts to give it some size and some bulk and ability to look menacing if it needed to. And so that was kind of interesting, but there's no evidence that they're evil in any way. They're just trying to help us. But to go back to what I was saying about that wormhole, they thought it was a wormhole back to his homeworld, but I now believe after seeing that episode that it was intentionally a wormhole to go back to the past, because I think that Galanthe may have realized that it was impossible to change the world in the future because the Earth had so much technology and there was so much warring factions that it figured, let me go back to the past to where there's not as much sophisticated weaponry in the hands of people, and maybe I can start affecting change at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution to prevent this climate catastrophe from ever happening. That's my suspicion, but we'll see how that plays out. But so yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Harriet's the Harriet from the future. And what the Galanthe is. So they did find the Galanthe in the past too. So he's
closest I could get.
Yeah, there's a picture of an eye anyway.
The Galanthe is a monster.
Well, there's a scene where they're watching a replay of a scientist giving an update or something like that, and the Galanthe comes by and kind of like nudges the scientist. When they play around or whatever it is. So it shows that it's harmless, more or less.
Yeah, it's just like a big puppy.
Yeah, like a gigantic puppy. So
yeah.
I mean, obviously, though, the Galanthe do go to the past because that's how they get the spores there, right?
Yeah, well, this one goes.
Yeah. Right.
And so he releases the spores as he ends up in the past. And so, but then they don't know where he went. He vanishes, and we find out that he's in this giant sphere that's underneath London in this giant cavern or something. So, but not only does Amalia True know where he's at, she does not only has she found him, but the Mad Doctor and his well-to-do sponsor have also found him. And they actually found him first and have been working to, that's the underground cavern, and that's the scaffolding that the mad scientist and his army of brain operated on drones has built to study the Galanthe. So the lady that's sponsoring it, she's in a wheelchair, but she's part of the wealthy. She's part of the wealthy elite of London. Yeah, and she founded this orphanage where all the touched are starting to gather. But she's also backing the insane doctor that's killing the touched. So, or at least experimenting on them in a non-ethically approved manner. Yeah, that's the sponsor lady. So she acts like a friend to the touched, but behind the scenes, she's also working with this mad doctor trying to figure out what makes them tick. So she
cannot be trusted.
Not to be trusted for sure. So yeah, so it's a good show. If you guys, people in the audience haven't watched it yet, I would encourage you to watch it. Hopefully we haven't spoiled too much of it for you. But it's definitely a good romp. So shall we move on to Shadow and Bone?
Yeah.
All right. So this is on Netflix. So The Nevers is on HBO. Shadow and Bone is a very interesting show. Sort of takes place in the same time period. I would guess it's sometime around 1800s, but it's more Central Asia, maybe Northern European based. It's seems to be a lot of Russian references because there's like the Tsar and the Tsaress who kind of run this area that they're in. And it's got a lot of magic. So there's groups of people called the Grisha. And the Grisha are magic users. And the magic users have different specialities. Some are called Inferni. They create fire. There's others that are called squallers that create wind, that can manipulate the winds to move ships. There's other ones that are fabricators that build, all kinds of strange contraptions and things. So they each have different abilities. And in the story, when it starts out, there's this area called the Fold, which is showing there in that picture. And this is a very wide and long stretch of dark, stormy stuff. You go in there, it's no light. It's like you're in a perpetual nighttime kind of a thing. And if you go through there, there's these thing called the Volcra. If you try to go through there, and a lot of people have to go through there because it kind of divides the country in half. So people want to do commerce. They want to visit people on the other side. They have reasons to go there. And so you try to make a crossing, and there's different methods of crossing. Sometimes there's a train that you can take that travels on tracks. A lot of times they have like these big sailing ships that run on like skids that go over land, and the squallers create the wind that pushes them through. But when you go through, you can't have any kind of a lamp or a light because that will attract the Volcra. Yep. And they're like these big winged, I don't know,
bat things.
Yeah, creatures that'll come and just kind of rip you to shreds. And so the guy that supposedly created the Fold did so, and he was the only one that can remove it, but he supposedly has died. And so the rumor, there's a legend, and we see kind of the legend in play here, that there will be a person born called a Sun Summoner. And the Sun Summoner will have the power to destroy the Fold and return the planet to normal. And so we find out that, yep, there's a woman who is a Sun Summoner. She doesn't realize it until her lover and her are in the Fold. They belong into a military unit that got assigned to travel through the Fold to the other side. They get attacked.
I'd hesitate to call that her lover. They're friends right now.
True, but I mean, they've got this
feelings for each other.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, he gets attacked by the Volcra, and she tries to save him, and then they're both grabbed by the Volcra. And in this moment of heated despair, she suddenly bursts forth this light, and that's when we realize she is the Sun Summoner. So I don't know, Chris, any parts you want to mention?
Yeah, there was in this. I'll also add a couple things on the Grisha there. Historically, they I guess were kind of
pariahs.
Yeah, they weren't well liked or anything like that. So the Grisha kind of grew to become their own little empire, if you will, and kind of built this fortress around themselves to kind of protect themselves from people that were kind of anti-Grisha and everything like that. And ultimately, they also did these tests when you were younger to determine whether or not you were Grisha, and the main kind of two characters in this, the was it Alina Starkov,
Yeah. Alina
and
Starkov.
her friend, when they were children, we come to find that the reason she didn't know she was Grisha is because they avoided the test somehow. And later on, they kind of dive into how she was able to trick the test or whatnot. But effectively, when they find her later, they're kind of curious as to how she managed to not get tested. And then her relationship with a friend kind of goes into turmoil for a little bit throughout the series because he no longer trusts her necessarily, or thinks maybe she lied intentionally to him about being Grisha and whatnot. So we come to find out it was never intentional or anything like that, but it was still the whole Grisha thing. There's a lot of history that they do dive into that on and kind of explain it and the testing and how they grew up. But probably
Didn't the boyfriend or whatever find out he was a Grisha too?
No, at least not that we've seen yet.
Yeah, not that we've seen yet. So
I
Mal
must be confused with somebody else.
Yeah, well, Mal and Alina both grew up in the same orphanage.
Yep.
She is considered to be a kind of an outcast. They call her a SHU, SHU, which I think may indicate that she has some Asian heritage in her.
Yeah, some kind of Asian descent, and
right.
That's looked down upon, not popular.
Right. So she's kind of discriminated against. And Mal was, in his youth at least, was kind of like, the 98-pound weakling, I guess, of the orphanage, always picked on. And she was a bit tougher, and she stood up for him. And because she had been constantly picked on her whole life, she was kind of used to it. And it was kind of the thing where, you either learn to defend yourself or you're going to be, picked on your whole life. So you got to be strong. So they kind of grew close in that way and grew up together in the orphanage. But now that they're adults, they both have feelings for one another, but they're both kind of, awkward at expressing them because they've been friends, I think, for so long. Right. So, but they both end up being in the army of this land, and I can't remember the name of the land. Starts with a K, I think. Kruger, I don't know. Anyway, so they're both kind of in the infantry. So there's two armies. There's the one army that's just the regular infantry type, and then there's the Grisha army that fight for this land. And so she's a map maker within the army, and he's a tracker. And so as soon as they find out that she is the sun summoner, she gets spirited away to the Grisha palace and starts being groomed to be this sun summoner, to have these abilities. Yep. And somewhere in the middle, they're trying, Mal and Alina are trying to correspond with each other, but I think there's somebody in the middle, and I think it's that evil Grisha, the Prince, whatever his name is, General Kerrigan. Sorry.
Yeah, General Kerrigan.
General Kerrigan. I think he's somehow intercepting their correspondence and preventing it. So anyway,
I know the answer to that if you haven't finished it, so wasn't sure if you wanted me to spoil that for you.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, I that's okay if you want to. I'm okay with that.
So you come to find out Kerrigan isn't necessarily who he says he is, and he does have a part to play in those messages, maybe not getting back and forth, for sure. And someone else close to Alina, we also find out, was playing into that as she gets groomed, if you will, to be the sun summoner. It's worth noting not all the Grisha are happy with Alina, so it's not like everyone there is welcoming to her, because she comes to find that she's under a lot of pressure. And this is, by the way, the photo that's up right now is the test that's done. They have this little thing that they can prick a Grisha with or whatever, and this light kind of comes out or shows what their powers are.
Right, so and that's a picture of Alina with General Kerrigan.
Yep, he seems like he's all nice and great initially, and he's very protective of her. Tries to help her kind of get into the fold with Grisha, and as the series plays out, you'll see that as dark as he dresses and his demeanor can be, that there's a lot more to it than that, and he has very close ties to what's going on with the fold.
Right.
So that said, I won't spoil too much on that, but it's there's a scene where they're eating dinner, and one of the Grisha that controls fire, like another commander or something like that, stands up and gives Alina a lot of grief, because he's like, you sit here eating dinner and you should be honing your powers or whatever, because we just lost another few hundred men today or something like that. She gets a lot of grief. Doesn't feel necessarily welcome, even though she's supposed to be the savior for them. So it's not all happy parading around or anything like that. There's a lot of people that basically want her to overnight become this sun summoner that's going to abolish the fold.
Right. And I would say, if you haven't seen it, definitely you want to check it out. I mean, they do a great job of world building in there. So Linda's got a picture up now of some of the characters. They're more part of the underworld of this society.
Noted by their fancy hats.
Yeah,
right.
I will add with these characters in particular, and don't quote me on this, but I believe there's a separate series of books that specifically focus on this group.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And there's kind of a little bit of because Gina, my wife, likes a lot of the book aspects. She'll go pick up the books and read them along with these series and stuff like that. There's a lot of chatter over how these characters were maybe portrayed in the series versus how they were maybe portrayed in the books. But there is opportunity, I think, down the road to take these characters and do a complete spin-off. There's enough there to do that, and apparently, I guess there's maybe some books out there that focus on these characters.
Oh, interesting.
So they're their kind of own entourage, if you will, in this series. So
yeah, so it's real good. There's a lot of twists and turns in it, and a lot of great world building. Love the costumes. Very creative costumes.
Yeah, it was a lot of originality. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and the castles are amazing. Palaces, I guess, more palaces. So I would encourage you to check it out. Again, that's on Netflix now, and it seems to me like it's kind of moving in the direction of like the Game of Thrones, as far as perspective of how much money they're putting into the production, and the dedication that they're putting into the storyline and stuff like that. So
I mean, maybe that's what happened to the Irregulars, is Netflix just decided that they probably shouldn't have two steampunk shows at the same time, and
that could be. I will agree with that, because I was having a hard time there between the Nevers and then the Irregulars, and now this one.
It's all mixed up.
It does get a lot of mixed up. So I actually had to stop watching the Irregulars. I only watched the first two, but like I couldn't sit down and watch these other ones and get them all started. I was getting confused as to like, wait, what happened to this? Oh, wait, that's a different series.
Right. It's hard enough now. It's hard enough just between the Nevers and Shadow and Bone to keep them separate.
Right. So I do feel like someone was going to get the short stick there, and it ended up being the Irregulars. So I don't feel bad on it. I will add on the Irregulars.
I think that was a good choice.
Yeah. I had a hard time getting into it. It was, I think the target audience was more of a younger adult for that. But I also feel like maybe I had the wrong expectations going into it, since it was supposed to be around kind of like the Sherlock Holmes kind of thing, and it's not like any of the previous ones we've seen. That's not to say that it can't be good. Just from my perspective, when I went into it, I maybe expected more than I was going to get, and I only got through the first two, and then just had to stop, because I couldn't keep it straight with other things, and everything else did a better job of kind of sucking me into watching it. So,
right.
Yeah, I wish I had watched the others first. The Irregulars, if I had to do over again, I would not have watched that.
You would have skipped that and gone right to the Nevers?
Seems like a lot of people felt the same way, because they didn't get renewed. So
yeah,
which sucks, because honestly, I think they had a good cast.
Yeah.
especially for some of the people that may have been newer there. So I
Well-
hope they find other opportunities for other things. But it is what it is.
Yeah. I did like the cast. We watched all of the season 1, and I would have liked to have seen it be renewed. I thought it had a lot of potential there, a lot of interest in the lady that was like the lead of the Irregulars. Very good actor.
It was a good cast. It's just, yeah.
It's
And
just
Like
a-
what
I
they
didn't
were
like-
doing with Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, he didn't like
Uh,
the treatment of Sherlock being a drug addict, and
Right.
Well, I don't mind him being a drug addict.
Yeah.
That was okay. It was his conversion to something spiritual is the reason for everything.
oh,
I will add though, I do get disappointed when I see new shows come out that get canceled after the first season. I'd always like to see a commitment to 2 or 3 seasons.
Mhm.
Give them a chance to get feedback, to see what worked, and make adjustments.
sure.
So I am disappointed in that because maybe they could have improved it. Maybe they could have made it into something. And historically, I think we used to see that. You'd see some things really
Yeah.
gain traction around season, 2 to 5. It really kind of builds on it. Some get worse as it goes over time, and then
Right.
they end up just dying. But I really hate to see something of this value,
Yeah.
or production quality, get canceled after one
Yeah.
season. To me, that's not giving them a fair shake. And especially when there's money that can easily make that happen,
Right.
especially if you're Netflix. Like, just do it.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah, I like the gritty realism of it. It was sort of meant to portray the grittier, grimier side of England and stuff going on in the shadows.
Mhm.
That the original Sherlock Holmes wouldn't necessarily have dealt with, kind of a thing. Areas where he wouldn't have felt comfortable going in or wouldn't have been accepted.
I think you've misplaced the Sherlock Holmes character.
Really?
No, because he was. They don't. Conan O'Doyle, he kind of makes mention of things, but like Sherlock Holmes was a boxer.
Yeah. Right.
He did deal with the occult. He was an expert in tattoos and such,
Yeah.
and he was probably a heroin user and definitely a cocaine user.
Mhm. Mhm.
The
So
master of disguise.
yeah, and so he's not the shadiness of the character, but Sherlock Holmes always it always became something scientific. It never ended up being
A spiritual solution.
yeah. So when he took on the occult, now the occult back in the day was something because sometimes it was the clan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to Conan O'Doyle, that would have been the occult. That would have been a secret society, and
There's a picture of
so
Sherlock.
I didn't like this character mostly because he went.
Could this show have worked then without having the Sherlock Holmes and Watson twist? Could this have just been written to where it was set in this time period? But
I think
without
it
the
could have
Sherlock
worked
Holmes?
without
Mhm.
that.
Probably not.
No, I think it could have. I think
Okay.
it could have worked without, or you could have had a couple characters that are similar. I just don't like, especially that it was sort of aimed at younger people.
Mhm.
I don't like that I think you need to leave Sherlock Holmes as a realism person, a realism detective.
Yeah. What if they had done it?
Otherwise, you
Go ahead, Charles.
just otherwise you're doing a disservice to the original
Yeah.
Holmes that was trying to sell encyclopedias. That was the
Yeah.
original purpose.
I think it might have been just as interesting. Like you say, if they hadn't had Sherlock and Watson in there, but they had this group of irregulars, these misfits in the 1800s,
Mhm.
and they're investigating these occult, spiritual,
Things,
supernatural type of doings, but they all get resolved in sort of a Scooby-Doo sort of fashion, right? Where it's
It would have been
always
better.
some bastard in a mask or something, perpetrating these advanced illusions in order to scare people into believing.
Yeah, so I guess part of my upset is a lot of the great site. And if you go way back, let's just say like the X-Files was definitely stolen from Sherlock Holmes, right?
Yeah.
They didn't say Sherlock, they didn't call him Sherlock Holmes. It's just the setup is very similar. You have a doctor and a detective, right?
Mhm.
And I think, and to me, that was fun, right? And even though the realism that the Doctor believes in is going to be destroyed every time, right?
Right.
Or just about. And so I think it's okay to steal from the Sherlock, but I think if you're going to change it, you don't call it the character Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. You just change.
Yeah,
you change
that's
the
what I mean. Like
names.
if they take that out, well, and then I think you can get a broader audience there because you're not fighting against what has been historically taped of Holmes. It's just somebody else.
I think we put Audie to sleep.
Oh, sorry, Audie.
Yeah, he's resting his eyes.
Audie's probably listened to that rant.
No, I'm usually getting out of bed about this time. So
here's my pitch, Charles. Here's my pitch. Same show, but instead of the Irregulars working with and for Sherlock and Watson, they are on their own in a world where Sherlock is trying to solve the same crimes, and he's coming to.
They beat him.
Well,
yeah,
he keeps solving the crimes that they have, like they figured out the supernatural solution to this, and he figured out the scientific solution, and he gets the credit. They never do, and so it's an adversarial relationship with them occasionally like trying to maybe get some help from him because they've got this supernatural problem. But he's like, it's never supernatural, and they're like, it's definitely supernatural. And he's like,
listen, that could work, Seth, because I'm envisioning in my mind an X-Files type of thing where the Irregulars represent Fox Mulder and Sherlock Holmes and Watson represent Dana Scully, right? And they're the scientific approach to resolving things, and the Irregulars represent the supernatural approach to solving things. And so they both managed to get the job done. So you never know, well, was it really that or was it really this?
So like in the first episode with the Birdman, the kids figure out the magical solution to it, and as soon as they resolve that, Holmes is there to basically arrest the guy because he figured out that these feathers were found at this aviary, and this one person had lost his wife and was obviously kidnapping these children.
Right.
And so he legitimately resolves it with his Holmesian method.
Right.
But they're also there taking care of the supernatural thing that he never has a chance to see.
Right. Right. I like that. I think that would have real legs. You might want to shoot an email off to Netflix.
Right. So in short, The Irregulars has been canceled, but we have a way to bring it back.
Right. And make it better.
Netflix, send me money. I'll write it.
And
Seth, we'll put Seth and Charles on the executive producer roster.
Yeah.
And did you know there was actually a movie in 2007 called Sherlock Holmes and the Baker Street Irregulars?
I did not.
I think I've heard of that, but I can't remember if I've seen it or not.
Yeah, a gang of sharp-witted kids save Sherlock Holmes from an accusation of murder and help foil an audacious robbery while rescuing members of their own gang.
Yeah, see, that probably the other problem is that probably doesn't fit as a sci-fi topic, but that should be a fun movie to see.
Yeah,
to see it.
There it is, Sherlock Holmes and the Baker Street Irregulars.
Maybe we'll have to arrange for a backyard movie night and screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, so we also wanted to touch on Venom. I think now I have not seen that, so I'm going to have to rely on those of you. I think Chris, you've seen it.
Yeah, I watched it yesterday, and Seth's seen it. I don't know if anyone else has seen it.
Okay. Anyone else? Charles?
No, I didn't get around to it.
Oh, Audie's seen it. All right. Well, we'll let you three go into details on Venom.
I think we kind of just wanted to bring it up because they just released a trailer for the second one, sequel coming out, Let There Be Carnage. I like the name, honestly. But I finally watched the movie. It's been in my to-do list, like a lot of things, for a long time, and I regret waiting so long to watch it. It was really good, I thought. not an A+ movie, but definitely a B+, and it was funnier than I thought it was going to be. Definitely entertaining. So Eddie Brock in this, I think, is portrayed pretty well. And I just like the humor of it and how they built the relationship between Eddie Brock and Venom, and how that relationship of having a parasite came to be. So yeah, it was definitely great.
Yeah, just on the movie title, to me, it sounds like I wouldn't have expected it to be funny. I'm expecting a bloodbath of carnage kind of a thing. So,
Well, I mean, so it is way funnier than I originally thought it would be. But it's almost all the humor is in the interaction between Eddie Brock and the Venom symbiote, and just the sheer level of talent that Eddie's actor has in portraying him, like the body work that he does.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. And so yeah, he basically has to
Tom
walk
Hardy
around for a good chunk of the movie talking to himself. He has his voice in his head, bickering back and forth with them, and it goes from a kind of a protective, self-preservation relationship with Venom, using Eddie Brock as his host, to a, you know what, I kind of like you. I think we can make this work. I'll help you out too.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, you kind of see that develop to the point where I'm not really sure whether Venom is really evil or anything like that. And I don't historically remember a lot from the comics what the history is there, but they do actually give you some background onto where Venom came from, and there's more than just him as a species out there.
I mean, there is a lot of comics history around Venom, and I could talk about a lot of it because I love the symbiotes. Like one of the very first comic book purchases I can remember making of a comic in a clear case that I wanted to save and collect was the original first issue of the Maximum Carnage series, which was one of the initial big Spider-Man events.
Yeah.
And Carnage is in fact one of my favorite Marvel villains, just because he's interesting. He's a serial killer who isn't special for anything other than he was a serial killer, and then he got this symbiote, and he's threatened the world multiple times. But really, at heart, he's just still a serial killer. He just wants to cause carnage.
Yeah, and this one really, I mean, we'll see what the second movie brings. The first movie really doesn't portray, Eddie Brock in that manner or anything. He's kind of a reporter that kind of exposes all these businesses out there, or companies doing bad things or whatever. Doesn't always make the right decision, but he's kind of ends up being a little bit of a low life, might be too strong of a word. But where Venom starts to like him is because where Venom is from on his world, he was kind of the same thing a little bit.
Loser too.
Yeah, I was a loser too. So so that was pretty interesting. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I liked how they did the relationship there. And let there be carnage from the trailer. Looks like it'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah, and so like one of the reasons I was really skeptical of the movie first is because Venom is, well, he was a villain who has his origin in Spider-Man, and they were going to spin this story without Spider-Man. In the comics origin and every other origin of Venom, he starts off as the Venom symbiote starts off as Spider-Man's black suit.
Yeah.
And so Spider-Man originally has the symbiote, and he wears it for quite a while because it enhances his powers. He doesn't need web shooters anymore because the symbiote is effectively his web shooter. But it also makes him more aggressive. And when he almost kills somebody, he uses the symbiote's weakness to sound to remove the symbiote from him. And Eddie Brock ends up like right underneath him at the time.
Yeah, inheriting it basically at that point.
And also coincidentally, Spider-Man, while being a dick, had kind of ruined Eddie's life. So Eddie Brock hates Spider-Man. Venom has just been, the symbiote has just been forcibly evicted from Peter Parker's Spider-Man. And then the two combine into Eddie Brock Venom
hating machine.
Yeah. And so Eddie, through Venom, basically gets Spider-Man's powers and the Venom symbiote's abilities. And they pretty much, for the longest time, just their one goal is to
destroy each other,
destroy Spider-Man. Or, I mean, Eddie Brock's goal is to kill Spider-Man. The Venom symbiote's goal is to get back together with Spider-Man. And but yeah, I didn't know how the movie would be able to portray that origin without Spider-Man. But they did a good job.
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job. So, Audie, you watched it too, right?
Yeah,
Your favorite part
I
of that?
found it interesting how it was better than I was expecting. Wasn't a stellar movie, but I realized why I was fond of it, because the critics just tore it to pieces.
That's how that usually
And if
works.
the critics don't like a movie, you gotta go see it.
It's not.
I second that.
mean, it's not the best of the superhero movies.
No, but
The story
need to be.
is a little weak.
It was fun.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. Like
Yeah.
you can have a fun dumb movie.
Yeah.
It's a dumb movie, but it is fun. And for me, it's Tom Hardy makes this movie, him and how he interacts with the Venom symbiote.
Yes.
And then they brought back, like, one of the best things though is they brought back the rap/rock song about the movie for the end credits. Did you hear that, Chris?
No, I missed that.
Yeah, they made a specific song for the end that was just like from back in the day, where every action movie or comic book movie property would have to have its own custom song for the end.
I vaguely remember them doing something like that. I can't remember the sound of it. But
I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
it was good. So yeah,
how
I liked
Captain
it.
or how Deadpool did the Captain Deadpool song at the end of.
I have yet to see any Deadpool movies.
Really?
You haven't seen
I have not.
either of the Deadpools?
No,
Okay,
neither
yeah.
one. I think the trailers turned me off too.
Mm.
That was just, I should have seen the movie.
Yeah, they're pretty funny.
They're so
Yeah.
funny.
They are fun. They're fun movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like Venom, it's just fun. Like it kind of becomes almost a buddy cop thing with Eddie and the symbiote.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. My favorite I don't know if I have two favorite scenes, but one of my favorite scenes is when Eddie's walking down the street and he's talking to Venom and trying to lay some ground rules. I think it's near the very end. And he's like, okay, look, there are good people and there are bad people. We don't eat the good people, okay?
Yeah.
We can only eat the bad guys. He's like, well, which one's the bad guys? You'll know it or whatever. And then there's this scene in the grocery store where a guy comes in to collect his weekly pay from the cashier, basically a thug.
Shakedown money.
Yeah, and Eddie kind of peeks around the corner and he's like, "Is that a bad guy?" And he goes, "Yep."
So one of the things about the thing about the Venom symbiote or the symbiotes is that they're not great. They don't bond with everyone.
Right.
And the people who they do bond to, they're pretty much consuming. And so, and this has comic history to it. Venom basically has to eat people to keep Eddie from dying because he's feeding off of him. And one of the things he has to eat in the comics, and this was a 90s turn, is brains. Venom has to eat brains. So you'll see him, like, they definitely wanted this to be an R-rated movie, I thought.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure it was going to be R-rated, but then they took it down to a PG-13.
Yeah, and I think there's, if they did an extended cut with the scenes they probably wanted to be in there, we would have seen it. We would have had a lot more gore, a lot more biting heads off and stuff, because they allude to it, but they really don't show anything.
No, they'll always show him going and then cut away, and Tom Hardy being like, "Oh God,
yeah, I can't believe I just ate a head."
What?
Yeah, so there are some pretty interesting shots of that,
I think my favorite part was when the squad that the evil business sends to take him comes in or just like breaks into his house, and the Venom symbiote is in him, but he doesn't know it yet. He just thinks he's sick. And so these things start attacking him, and he's just like moving without realizing.
Yeah, Venom's like, "I'll
kicking
just do this
everyone's
myself."
ass. And it's like all of a sudden he reaches out his hand and a flood of black goo smashes a guy against a wall, and he's just like staring at the guys are looking at him, and he's looking at his hand and looking at the guys, and it's like,
yeah. Mind you, in Eddie Brock's head at this moment, he's just like gonna give in and let these guys take him. Like when they come into his apartment, he puts his hands up, and Venom's in his head going, "What are you doing? Put your hands down."
doing that, pussy.
And it's that whole interaction thing. I thought they did really, really well. And so throughout the movie, he's kind of figuring out his part with Venom, and Venom's figuring out how he's going to make it work with Eddie. And by the end, they kind of come to this kind of agreement. So, so it was pretty good. 8 out of 10 for me. Could have been a 10 out of 10 if it had been a smidge darker with some more gore and everything, but I don't think they would have been able to get to that PG-13.
They should have just gone R-rated with this.
Yeah, if they had gone R-rated, I think this would have been a 10 out of 10, A+, with a little bit darker, but keeping the humor.
Like, there was nothing they gained from going PG-13 as far as making a good movie. Like, they might have gained
the only thing I can think of is trying to get the larger audience, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
But
I don't think it was the right move for this one.
Yeah, the stinger from when I saw the movie, I didn't think it would get a sequel, but they did do a stinger at the end of the first movie where they introduced where Eddie Brock is back on his reporter beat, and he goes to see Cletus Cassidy for a interview, and Cletus Cassidy is Carnage. And so they teased that at the end of the first movie. They teased Carnage, and they are actually following through on that with Let There Be Carnage. So, and Cletus Cassidy is played by
Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
That should be good.
That'd be good.
Which should be really interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to see his take on that, because Woody can be funny and have that weird menacing look or talk. So I'm really interested to see how he does, especially with how they did the first one with Tom Hardy and Venom. I really want to see what happens with Carnage.
Yeah, the Woody Harrelson interacting with his symbiote.
Yeah, I really want to see how they do that.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting, because in the comics, Cletus and Carnage are a much more, or like in canon, they're like the perfectly bonded pair, because they both just want the same thing. They just want Carnage, and they're both completely crazy. Like, they're not the Cletus was the methodical serial killer, but then he gets the symbiote, and they're just like having a good time murdering people everywhere because no one can stop them.
That sounds like a must see then.
Oh yeah, I'll go see that one in the theater. 'Cause I can.
All right. Good to know.
Maybe.
Well, final thoughts, anyone?
Have you seen Resident? Did you watch any Resident Alien?
We have not yet.
Still on my to-do. You can hate me. It's on my to-do.
It is on my to-do list. Maybe tonight we'll
I'm gonna keep reminding you guys.
do that because
That's
I
a
do
lot.
want to watch it.
Yeah, only last thing I want to call out that we discussed briefly before we started recording today was Henry Cavill did get cast in a new movie coming out. They're going to be doing a Highlander reboot, so kind of looking forward to that.
Now, see, I wonder if they're going to do an actual reboot, or if they will do what they did with the series, where it was a soft reboot, where they're like, no, the sequel movies never happened, and the first movie was just a prequel to this.
I don't know. I think it's been long enough where they can just act like the other ones didn't happen.
Yeah, there's
been a
enough
while.
of a new potential fan base where if they do a good enough job,
I wouldn't
They
mind, however, seeing Christopher Lambert come back as a cameo or something, even if it's
Yeah.
a different character. That would be a nice.
I haven't
nice to
seen
have.
Christopher Lambert in forever.
Yeah, he's still out there. He's old man now.
Yeah, that happens.
But I don't think they could do that though, and have like if he was okay, they could do it, but he couldn't be an immortal.
1986 was his film. Wow.
Like he couldn't come back as Connor McLeod.
No, that's what I mean. Like if he was just some old guy in the street, even or something, like just in passing
Yeah.
by, or a guy behiing the counter.
A hat
Yeah, some guy behind the counter go like whoever Cavill's character ends up being comes in to buy something, and there's only
Right.
one left, and he's and
Yeah.
Lambert is just like, there can only be one. In his creepy Lambert voice.
That would be
Yeah,
hilarious.
just something. Just throw us something. But I think that would be pretty cool to have
I
him
think
there just for.
Yeah,
I like it
Adrian
when
Paul
movies
should
do
be
that.
in there somewhere too. Like maybe they could like reverse the role and have Adrian Paul play a Duncan MacLeod and who's mentoring a younger Connor MacLeod.
Yeah, they could do that too.
Here's Lambert today.
Holy cow! What the heck? I thought he'd look way older.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
he
there's
is
a
a
few
I
different
take it
pictures.
back.
Yeah, somewhere he looks even older than that.
Probably.
Like,
But yeah, I think it would be cool to have some cameos there from people who have played in some previous runs, and not obviously as immortals, but just something out there. But anyways, be on the lookout for that. I'll be excited to see whatever that trailer comes out to be and what their plans are, what they plan to do for the plot. So
man, now I kind of want to watch Highlander the series again.
It was a good series.
It was
Yeah.
I can't even keep up with the new stuff that's coming out, let alone rewatch the old stuff.
Well, see, I can watch
You're
I
not
can watch
wrong.
the old stuff while I'm doing work.
well,
While I'm programming.
and not to
I've
drag us
seen
too
it.
far down a rabbit hole here, but to end off, I think a thing we should circle back on is: are we getting a little bit too much of a flood of new series?
Oh yes.
And because obviously we start to feel it. We all try to watch as much as we can, but there's only so much time in a week. But if we're pumping out something every 60 days of a new series or new show, I mean, it's great that we're seeing that content, but at the same time, it gets a little bit overwhelming. And,
Right.
and to our point earlier in the show when we talked about the Irregulars being dropped, maybe it was just too much.
But I mean, thankfully, it's not like in the before times where you had to be there on the night to
Right.
watch
Oh
the
my
show,
gosh.
or else
Yeah.
you fell behind.
Yeah.
Like you can miss something for 6 months, and then when there's the inevitable dry spell, get caught up. It's just worse for us because we all want to be able to talk about the thing, but I can't watch 2 shows a week.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, sounds good. Well, thank you guys for another interesting episode, and I hope you all enjoyed it. And as always, if you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, we'd love to hear it in the comments section. Throw it down below or check us out on our website, galacticdriftwood.space.
Or through the Synergy Nation.
Synergy Nation Network, we're on there too. along with some other fine podcasts. Check us all out. And till then, we'll see you again in 2 weeks with, well, by then we should have the final season finale of the Nevers to talk about. And we'll see, we'll be almost to the end of Shadow and Bone by then. So we'll see where that's going as well. So, all right.
And maybe
Till then,
you'll
we'll
watch
see
a little Resident Alien.
And we'll watch some Resident Alien.
I'm going to keep bugging you guys about
Please
that.
do. Keep on us.
Keep on us. I do want to see
I know you'll like it, and I just want you to see it so bad.
All right. We'll definitely get that done. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.